Hello, YouTube.
YouTube.
Okay, let's make a run at this. What do you say?
Let's do it.
I saw your face. That was funny. Okay, here we go. Hey, hi, hello, and welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Radio Tech Guys podcast. This is a podcast. I think we'll just leave it at that. Oh, boy. No, listen, this is, what is this? This is a podcast that is mostly about radio technology. We might deviate from that ever so slightly now and then, but ever so slightly. But typically it's about the radio industry and the technology behind it.
I can tell you what it's not about.
What's that?
It is not about federal immigration policy.
Well, we're going to do our best to keep it not about that, but we'll see.
We'll do our
Okay, so my name's Alex Linger. Glad to be with you. Across the computer screen is Chris Moran. Hello. How are you?
I'm holding up the blue side of the world. How are you?
I am turning off your audio. Okay, good. I am good. Really, is that all? Like, is anything else going on with you?
Yeah, but it's being overshadowed. It seems like I am waking up and going to bed with my phone in my hand and just scouring the world and trying to remain hopeful.
There's lots of hope
in this dark time.
Some would even argue that there's nothing but hope.
And that's what, that's what makes this a special place, I suppose.
Hopefully.
the fact that we're folks like us who are not in agreement much these days on these things are still creating podcasts and content and having civil dialogue.
Yeah, for one more week at least.
About the issues. Then we'll see what happens from yeah, that's going on, and that's really about it. It's been a pretty quiet weekend, honestly. How about you?
I feel like this has been a depressing start to a podcast.
Well, it can only go up from here.
There is hope. Nothing but hope.
I feel the hope for this podcast.
I'm fine. It's been a busy weekend personally. Two little kids that were sick. They had lots of sick. They weren't little sick. But they are getting better, and I think now I've got it. So
this is my favorite part about doing this podcast from remote locations is that I can see you on my screen, but I have no chance of catching whatever your children have provided you with this time.
Right, until we share an office, and we're only about 9 feet apart tomorrow.
So that's tomorrow.
Sorry.
So there's that.
All right. Well, hey, let's jump into this thing before we dive any deeper into this pit of despair. How can you get a hold of us if you would want to? You can email us at ask@theradiotechguys.com, ask@theradiotechguys.com, or
anywhere on social media. But here's what I'm doing before we do this. I'm logging into our Twitter account currently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that thing?
I vaguely remember that.
But that's a bad sign. But what I want to see is the last time we tweeted on this Twitter account.
It's been
I also don't know our password, so I will check it in my phone.
Here, you want me to tell you what it is? Just
yeah, when was the last tweet? This is embarrassing, but I keep sending people here, but we're not
well, if people tweet at us, we get them.
That is the wrong. I have 18 Twitter accounts on my phone. Hold on, where is
my?
Oh yeah, it was actually wasn't terrible.
Oh, sorry.
It was the 12th of January, but that was a shameless self-promotion of an episode of the podcast. Actually, that was the last activity. So 17 days.
Was that one auto-generated too?
No, that was a real one.
Okay, all right.
But then before that, the previous time had been a month and 6 days.
Hey, listen.
So
Twitter is nowhere near as bad as our Instagram account.
Do we have an Instagram account?
Exactly. We do. We really do.
Well, it would behoove our audience to follow us on Twitter. Just search for it's Radio Tech Guys on Twitter.
We can promise you that we won't spam you with tweets.
No, that's right. See, clean feed, and then we'll increase our frequency of tweeting while we are interacting with our new Twitter followers. So
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So follow us there. Search for us on Facebook. Just search the Radio Tech Guys, and definitely. I'm not even going to talk about YouTube. That's another one where we have blatantly foregone our. And you bought. Here's what.
I know.
Bought like a litany of equipment so that you could also begin making videos, and have not made one since you bought your new equipment. We need to get on the ball.
I know.
This is how New Year's resolutions go. It's January 29th. We haven't done a single thing. In fact, this is our second podcast in the month of January. It's supposed to be weekly, and it's January 29th.
Life just gets in the way in so many different ways.
It does.
It's not an excuse, and believe me, I want to do more, and we might.
Maybe we will. Coming up here on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about some new stuff, new developments. We're going to talk about replacing a 35-year-old FM antenna with a new one, and
I don't know why you'd do that.
Well, it's about time. Some of the cool things that we're going through currently, some of our pattern study results, some of the cool stuff we're doing there. Alex has a little aside for us with some fun statistics on, let's call it radio with pictures.
I like that.
Yes, since it's a radio podcast, we'll refer to it that way.
Wide-reaching.
And we'll talk a little bit about troubleshooting your microwave data links when things don't go right. It's different than your old STLs. Like, there's a lot more that it could be.
Yeah, for one, the dishes have to be pointed at each other.
That's true. The much narrower. But anyway, we'll talk about how we're troubleshooting a problem even right now, as we speak, with some new input from the support team at Cambium, which we will pass along to you for your troubleshooting help in the future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Thanks for joining us.
Cue the music. So what's first, antennas?
Well, yeah, let's talk about antennas. Let's start at the top of the tower.
Yeah, we'll do that. So we've been talking a lot about this project that we have going on, this tower retrofit reconstruction reinforcement of a 420-foot guide structure that is slow moving. We talked a little bit last episode about some of the structural challenges there and the things that we're going through on that front. Simultaneously to this, we're replacing the 6-bay rototiller antenna for the FM that's at this site already. This thing has been in place since 1981, since the tower was originally built. It's a 6-bay rototiller currently in fed. So it's the transmission line is fed from the bottom of the antenna the way it is now. 3-inch pressurized transmission line. That's also original from 1981. And so we're going to replace it. It's been such a great antenna with such just a track record of just a legendary signal in the market. We're going to replace it with the same antenna.
I'm going to stop you for a second. I lost your audio.
What?
Now I hear you.
Well, I'm glad I'm back. Everything is good on the recording side.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Press on.
Legendary signal. We're replacing it with the same make and model of antenna, ERI rototiller, but technology has changed a lot. It's going to be center fed this time instead of end fed. So the feed line will come up and distribute into the antenna between the 3rd and 4th bay. And we also thought this would be a great opportunity to do a pattern study on the range at ERI to find out what pattern, where we want to mount this antenna, how we want to mount it, if there's a better place that it could be positioned on the tower to serve the market we want to serve. Because I mean, honestly, the topology of Morgantown and its population density in the metro market that we're in has changed a lot in the last 34 years. There's areas of this market that were not developed when this antenna was put up, and so we did that. We commissioned a range study with ERI, and they came back with. And in fairness, I don't know that we really had a really good discussion about our objectives, with the signal of this radio station. So they came back with their 10 patterns that they wanted to present to us that they thought would be the best 10. The challenge was, I think their algorithm is heavily dependent on population density. They overlay they have population data that overlays on this map, and their patterns all had the actual antenna, the radiating antenna on the west side of our tower structure, where our city, our coverage, our main downtown of our main city and our market is on the east side. And so it was literally right behind the tower. Anyway, the first 10 patterns, they all looked good and had their variables and things about them that were cool. And depending on how they rotated the antenna around the tower, we'd have lobes in certain places that were better than others. And so we went back to ERI and said, that's cool for population, but we have a very weird Nielsen ratings area that runs about 60 miles north to south. And so we'd like to see some patterns with the antenna mounted more in its current location on the east side of the structure and kind of around the tower that way. And so they came back with another 10 proposed patterns based on mount positions and standoff distance from the tower and those kind of things that all make big impacts. This is this tower is a 24-inch face. It's not a huge structure. We have much bigger ones in this company, but that's enough to play with the pattern significantly. All of that to say, after looking at 20 pattern studies, we landed right back on the original mount location and position and standoff depth that the original antenna was placed 30 years ago. Face mounted on the east face of the tower is the best location for that antenna to cover the area that we want to cover. And so, yeah, that was a fun process though. I haven't done that. I don't think I've really done one of those. It was fun to, really dig in and look at the differences that the structure makes. And it's really pretty crazy what a difference in what a theoretical omnidirectional signal would be if the antenna was in free space.
Yep.
How dramatically the structure that you're mounting it to creates the directionality and the pattern of the antenna. It's pretty fascinating to see.
I guess this would be a good time to announce that I have started a study to see how I can now hang an antenna system from a balloon.
There'd be a lot of people interested in
Change
that.
all these problems. That's right.
Yep. Let's make a nice big circle where horizontal and vertical polarization are equal in all.
How about places.
That? It would be yeah. So that was fun.
I should have that out around the same time I get the next YouTube video out. So be on the lookout for that.
I can hardly wait. So we'll keep you posted on this antenna project. I've got to talk with ERI, with Carl and the folks there this week and see what their thoughts are in terms of ship date. The problem we're about to run into is we already got a call that our 450 feet of 3 1/8 inch transmission line is on a truck and is coming to us. We anticipated being further along, having anything done with the structure. Now we got to figure out how we're going to safely store that much copper. And then when the antenna comes, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
We were hoping to be, ready for it to show up on site and whatever, but it's.
What did they say the coax weighs?
It was something crazy, like 1,500 pounds or something.
Yeah.
So we got to try to manhandle that thing into a garage bay or something on Monday or Tuesday. Should be fun.
Should be something.
Yeah.
Should be something.
We'll definitely keep you updated though. That's what I wanted to say. Like this was part of maybe this will be our catalyst for getting these videos back and out. Like we really the tower, this whole project at the station of the translator, the AM, the FM translator for AM that we're putting up, the tower reinforcement, and this antenna are all the same site. So we want to do a whole series on that. There just honestly hasn't been much to show there yet.
We kind of got put on hold. So, but it's happening.
As soon as there's some stuff to show, we'll show it.
Hell or high water, it's going to happen. All right, let me sandwich this in between some radio topics. So, in the spirit of the Super Bowl,
You mean the big game?
the big game,
I don't know if we can say that. I don't think we can say the S word.
is that copywritten?
It's licensed, yeah.
Is it really?
Have you ever noticed why all of our stations that have these parties on that day call it the big game party?
I never noticed that.
Yeah. Let me tell you the rules on saying those words. Here's the rules.
Can I say the bowl in which is super?
Let me see. I'll tell you right now. Here's a reminder on how to be careful how you use the trademarks. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff here.
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So like if you ever listen to like when our stations do their parties at BW3s or the other places they do them, they always refer to it as come and watch the big game or the big game. Even restaurants can't say.
I just thought we were being cutesy.
Let's see. I'm looking for the exact rules of how to do this.
So can you say the World Series? Or is it just the Super Bowl?
I think it's just the Super Bowl. I'm looking here to see.
Well, I could only be so lucky that somebody is actually listening to this podcast. They would contact us.
Okay, here's the rules. We can talk about it.
Okay.
You
just can't advertise.
The key point to remember is this: the NFL polices its trademark, so it actively searches out for violations of this. Its trademark is Super Bowl. The word Super Bowl, 2 words. You cannot use the NFL's trademarks for any commercial or promotional purpose like parties, endorsements, advertisements, sponsorships, contests, etc. Okay. There are certain fair uses where the use of team names and the game in a news story is permitted, but that's about it. So you really cannot use that word for just about anything.
So what you're saying is I should not invite people to my Super Bowl party.
No.
Where there's a $5 cover charge.
That's correct. That would be a problem.
Okay. Well, I'm not doing that.
Okay, good. Let's make sure we're clear.
Okay. Well, anyway, in the spirit of the big game, that just sounds stupid. Okay. Whatever. Off the rails now. So there's this thing that happens. There's this event in American football that happens, and it's large. Yep. I just find this stuff interesting. I really started thinking about this. We, the company that Chris and I work for, we're involved annually with a golf tournament. Can I say that? Is it copywritten?
Nope, you're good to say it.
We're involved with the Greenbrier Classic that's held at the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. It was not held last year due to catastrophic flooding.
It was terrible.
Horrible. They had to cancel the event, rightfully so. But they are having it this year, so that's a cool story. But anyway, we got involved in that, and that is a PGA Tour event, and Golf Channel takes the first couple days of the tournament, and then CBS takes it for Saturday and Sunday. And it really got me thinking about what does it take to put on, a live production, especially of golf. You got to think about it. It's so spread out. It's spread out over probably literally miles. I mean, there's tons of area to cover, and play is happening all over that area. So you've got to have cameras everywhere. So obviously even for these smaller events, the Greenbrier Classic is not a huge event, but even for these smaller events, it takes like, I don't have the exact numbers on what that event takes, but like 50, 60 cameras all over the place. Some of them permanent, some of them mobile, many of them wireless, because you have to. I mean, you're moving with the players, and that takes a whole infrastructure to be able to get that stuff back cleanly and in full HD quality and all that kind of great stuff. Several production trucks. Just for the Greenbrier, it takes several production trucks. The Masters is a whole different story. But I wanted to get some facts and figures about the Super Bowl. Excuse me, the bowl in which is super coming up this weekend. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say also don't say Super Sunday.
Really?
Don't say NFL, AFC, or NFC. Don't say the National Football League, American Football Conference, National Football Conference, or any team name or nickname.
Wow.
Here's what you can say though: the big game, the Professional Football Championship, the date of the game.
Uh-huh.
You can say the two team cities that they're from. So you
Okay.
could say Atlanta and New England.
Okay.
You cannot make any statement mocking the fact that the NFL doesn't allow the media to use any of the forbidden terms. However, there's more, but there's more.
Dear.
You also the league even claims that if you show the game on a screen that's larger than 55 inches, that's copyright infringement.
Well, wait a minute. Hold the phone here. Most people have TVs that are larger than 55 inches.
That's the argument. That rule hasn't been updated for a while, but they were at one point claiming they've shut churches down, having parties to watch the game. I mean, they've done it's. I went to a party for the big game at a church. It is not the church that I am affiliated with, for the record. It was a different church. A friend of ours last year in Morgantown that showed the game on their big screens in their sanctuary.
Sure.
Which is a blatant violation of the league's
But
policy.
why would that be a violation? What if it's free?
Even if it's free.
Why?
Because.
Well, how is that hurting them?
Because they want paying cable subscribers, like they want people to have to watch it on their own. I don't know.
All right, let's say all these people had cable subscriptions.
I don't know.
That stuff.
It's complicated.
Nuts.
They're all over it.
Clearly, they're not making enough money.
Sorry, carry on.
Well, anyway,
the big game.
This is why I prefer golf. This is why I like golf.
Exactly.
Forget the football league of the national. Anywho, so it takes a lot, obviously, to do these high-profile live productions, and I know this is outside of the realm of radio a little bit, but I think all of us as broadcast people are interested in this. Here are some facts. This is from the Super Bowl 3 years ago.
The big game 3 years ago?
That would be 2013. Okay, so 3 or 4 years ago. This is when it was in New Orleans or Nolans, depending on how you say it. So, okay, here's a couple cool things. First of all, you got to think about the Superdome, and it's big, but it's also, oh, you know what? I've had your camera on this whole time. There we go.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. The Superdome is big, but you don't think of it as being this monstrous, need for this many cameras. They have 70 cameras in that facility for the big game.
I believe it.
I guess I do too. And you got to think we're not talking about 70 studio grade manned positions, but still, that's a lot of cameras. They also, of course, and even this was 4 years ago, so this has changed. Of course, they have an arsenal of very high speed cameras recording 300 to 500 frames per second for slow motion. You got to have that. I mean, that's important. They also shoot all of those in 4K. We don't see it in 4K, but that gives them the ability to zoom in on that foot that's on the out of bounds line and the ball crossing the plane in the end zone and all that kind of cool stuff.
Yep.
They call that hyper zoom. Fancy name, I guess.
That's a fancy way of saying crop.
Right. Exactly. Well, you see, crop is copywritten by Sony.
Oh, I see.
So you can't say crop.
Got it.
Goodness. Of those 70 cameras, depending on the game, but for this game, 18 of those are what they call the bread and butter cameras, the big ones with people, big lenses. 18 camera. I mean, that's a lot.
That's crazy, isn't it?
That's a lot.
When we do a football game, we have like 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Total cameras, we have like 7.
Yep.
And some of those are just shooting a scoreboard. But that's just the equipment out on the playing surface. The production trucks, there's an entire production truck just for the sky cam, or that camera that runs on the wire over the field. That has a whole truck. Replay has multiple trucks. A truck just to hold the servers that manage replay, and then a whole truck just for the people to sit there and cut them up. It's a lot of infrastructure, and that stuff is fascinating to me because we at home, we sit on our couch and watch this, and to us, we ingest it as though it's this, it's a thing that we expect to see. You don't stop and think about what goes in to making that happen.
Sure.
And the incredible number of points of failure, which us as engineers know, that's all you think about is what can fail. I don't even think you could put that on paper in this kind of situation. So think about that as you watch El Grande Gameo this weekend. Just keep that in mind as you watch everything that happens. And as you can probably expect, happens flawlessly, or else you lose your job. So
that's cool.
It is cool stuff. And I wish I had more figures about that. There's not a lot of information, obviously. That's a lot of this stuff is kind of trade secret. CBS keeps a lot of this, how they do it to themselves. But still, you should look it up and get the information you can, because it's fascinating to see what goes into it.
There's a great video that I saw last year or the year before. It was on YouTube. It was inside.
Am I thinking of the same video?
TV truck Super Bowl.
I think I remember that.
There was a video that we watched. Yeah, a couple years ago, somebody did a really pretty in-depth look inside the main truck where they're cutting the show.
Yeah,
it was pretty fascinating.
It is fascinating, even on a small scale event. Like the stuff that we do. I'm sorry, it is small scale. Even the stuff that we do. I mean, the amount of ClearComm chatter and all the moving parts and just the urgency of live production is amazing. And then you take it to a scale like this event or the Masters or the World Series, you name it, and it's just amplified tenfold.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Cool stuff.
So we've also been something the last week or so at work we've been struggling a little bit with is we have a bunch of them, but one in particular, we have a microwave link that is a pretty high-end one that we bought. It's been what we decided yesterday, 4 years, I think.
4 years, yeah.
4.5 years. This is an 11 gigahertz licensed link. It's a Cambium PTP 800 set. It's got 3 foot dishes on both ends of this link.
Well, there's your problem.
It's a very short hop. It's like 3.5 miles. Perfect line of sight. No obstructions. This link randomly will, I'd say once between every 8 and 20 hours or so, the link will drop. Dropping packets, causing things to be on the. Huh?
Can I tell a funny story?
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw this in there. You talked about perfect line of sight, no obstructions. Here's something to remember when you're planning these links. Make sure you use accurate mapping data and current mapping data, because it's gotten better. We had a situation. We used old coordinates because we had a tower on our roof that we were shooting our 950 STLs from, and you're going to the same site, so we had coordinates of that tower, so that's what we used to plan the link with. However, those coordinates were old, and GPS data has gotten better, so those coordinates were actually out in the road.
So $70,000 later, and a new 120-foot self-supporting tower in the backyard later.
It needed to happen.
It did. We had a link. So anyway, that link's been up for about 4 years, and just in the last a week or so, we started having these intermittent drops that we couldn't explain, and so we gathered our data, got all the stuff over to the support folks at Cambium. In the meantime, I talked to our vendor, who's going to be a guest on this show in a couple weeks.
That's exciting.
Yeah, Jeff Holdenred. He's our person that we deal with at the company called Double Radius, where we buy pretty much all of our microwave gear. I got on the phone with him just to tell him I was contacting support and what our problems were, and he said, I think you need to replace the cabling between your ODU, the radio on the tower, and the indoor unit. Now, in our cases, these are this specific type of radio is using just coax, just coax cable is all it is, with end connectors on each end. And the kind that we use is no longer what they're recommending that we use. They want us to have half-inch heliacs or whatever, and that's not what we have. So they've seen some problems with a specific type of cable that we're using, and so they think it's cable. Anyway, we went ahead and contacted Cambium and sent all of our diagnostics and stuff to, because it's the craziest thing. It's not what you would expect to see, where you'd have, like, if you had an alignment problem, or if something was loose and was drifting, like where you would expect to see signal degrade and then get to a point and then go away until it came back. This is like perfect by the specs for installation, and then gone, and then back. Okay. So Cambium replied today. I'm not going to read the email, but I'll give the points that they said, so that others who have this may. They had analyzed the field diagnostics that we sent them, and here are the details. Not all of the details, because some of them don't matter. The radios have been up for a long time, which is a good thing. The link performance is very good, and the same is predicted by the link planner software, which is good.
Also good.
Our firmware is out of date. Not so good, but also not necessarily the reason. Like,
it shouldn't cause these symptoms.
No, out of date firmware should not cause your link to drop it out. They observed that the transmit power at both radios was dropped. It might be because of radio or cable issue. That was one of their, so that's not super narrow. Observed CRC errors in both end radios at wireless part. Now, this is the part that makes me think this is a cable problem.
Yeah.
These CRC errors. This might be because of the IF cable issue, which is running between the ODU and CMU at both sites. So I think I think we're going to have to replace the cable, all of the cable.
Yeah.
Link were flapping up and down because of the TX power dropped and the CRC error. So that's the expected result of the transmit power drop off because of the CRC error. Then the link is down. And they want to know what the weather conditions were on those days. Not a factor. Like, not a factor. So this is a cable problem. And all of that to say, if you experience these symptoms in one of these, see, some of the radios that we use are Ethernet all the way up to the radio. They use just standard Ethernet cable from the power supply, and all of the brains are in the actual radio on the tower itself. The Cambium models that we're using in these cases are the indoor unit, the brain of the thing is in there, and then it uses that coaxial cable to send, really it sends everything. The data's on that cable. Yeah. Power's on that cable. Well, I guess data and power on that cable. I guess it's kind of like Ethernet, frankly, now that I'm saying it out loud. It's the same in both cases, but the cable is apparently the problem in these cases. So not a huge deal. Going to be a little bit of a cost, and you don't like to be replacing things on these towers just 4 years into their lifetime. Yeah. But I think that's the problem. So I think that's what we're going to be doing.
Here's a fun aside off of this topic. There are benefits to using this coax type cable that we are using. Yeah. Ethernet is convenient and cheap, and the ends are cheap and everything's easy to do. However, Ethernet traffic, well, that's a bad way to say that, but the the data that's on that cable is transmitted at 100 megahertz, which is darn close to a lot of FM broadcasts.
Oh, I see.
I just learned this recently, actually, from Jeff Holdenred. But so it since it's at 100 megahertz, if you have a transmitter that's at 99 megahertz or something very close, it
Or
can
100.1, for instance.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It can cause interference. So it's not necessarily the best way to go. Now, the way around that is to use the more expensive, very shielded, that has like not just a drain wire, but it's actually got like a copper shield all the way down, which is more expensive and harder to deal with. But yeah, so at least this coax that we're using sort of eliminates that problem, but it's also more expensive, harder to deal with, and in our case, apparently the wrong thing to use.
Yeah,
which is a bummer, because didn't we just replace the cable on the studio side? Didn't we just replace it from the tower to the power phaser?
Yes, we replaced 110 feet of it
with the old stuff, right?
With the old stuff, which we're going to replace again. Yeah, we're going to rip all of it down and put half-inch heliacs. It's going to be a little bit of an expense.
I wonder when they change these standards.
I don't want to tell you.
Okay.
It was like 6 months after we put our link in.
Is that right?
So, but here's what happened. Well, I don't want to go into it, but I didn't have the right conversation with the right people when we replaced that cable earlier.
Yeah.
I just ordered what we had.
Absolutely. I would have done the same thing.
And nobody said, hey, you know what? Because I'm not even sure they were cross-checking what we were going to use it for. Like, it was just like, this guy called and wanted this cable, and so that's what they sold me.
Yeah.
But now we know. And
absolutely,
to be safe, this link needs to be good. I mean, this is a massive one for us. It needs to be solid for the next 10 years. So I think we just need to replace every inch of that cable and every end connector and make it good. So that's coming up.
I laughed when Chris read me the email, and the first line was, well, the radio's been on for a long time. Well,
yeah,
good.
I couldn't figure out if they were saying that it shouldn't be on for this long without rebooting, and in fact, Alex brought up a good point. The reason that we rebooted them the last time, 167 days ago in 10 hours, was because we had a problem.
Yeah.
So, in fact, this problem, this exact same problem.
That's funny.
So
it's kind of like when I get on switches and servers and whatnot and see their uptime, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's been running for 5 years. That's good and amazing.
Yeah, it's been running for 5 years. That can't be good, but it is good.
That's funny.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Right.
We'll be back with another amazing episode next week. I need to call Jeff. We'll see. Jeff won't be next week. It might be the week after, but in 2 weeks, Jeff Holdenred.
But with our track record, there might not even be a show next week. So
that's true. So maybe the next one will be Jeff. There might be. Okay.
Oh, it's the big game next week.
It's big game. We could live. Nobody would watch that.
Can I say? Well, we can't. Apparently that's completely off.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Can I say Stillers instead of the other name?
I'm not legal counsel.
All right, fair enough. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us. Join us next week for something that'll be something. As always, you can contact us. Ask at theradiotechguys.com. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter, I guess, if you want to. And, of course, on YouTube. And, yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.